Well, all eyes are on the results of last night's election, of course, but one thing is certain, no matter the result, the pandemic isn't going away anytime soon.
It is not. Dr. Zorba Paster joins us now to talk about the latest headlines, and later on he'll take your calls. We'll let you know when to call in. Hello, Zorba.
Hi, Zorba. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We just reported that the federal government's giving the UW system 250,000 rapid tests to use for students.
Right.
How accurate are these rapid tests?
Well, the real issue is the accuracy of COVID testing in the first place. So there are false positives and false negatives. A false positive is when it says you have coronavirus, you have COVID and you don't. And a false negative is when it says you don't have COVID and you do. So let's talk about the false positives, because I want to give a good example of someone in my practice. So here it was a guy. He turned out to be positive, and the reason that he got tested in the first place is he has 2 children, and in the daycare center, someone was positive for COVID. So everybody, all the parents, all the kids got tested for COVID. So both of his children did not have COVID. His wife did not have COVID, and he ended up being positive for COVID. He said, I don't quite understand it. Nobody else in my family has it. What should I do? I said, what you should do is go and get another test. Go and get a test. You can get a test. The first test was at the Alliant Energy Center. So got another test, not at the Alliant Energy Center, at his doc, and the other test showed indeed it was negative, that he didn't have COVID. So he said, what's going on? Why was it positive one time and negative another time? And the answer is between 5 and 40% of the time, the positive tests are actually wrong. So it's a big issue. And then he talked to the person at the Alliant Energy Center and said, wait a minute, they've never heard anything of it. And that's the reason, because most people who get a positive test never get retested. And so the problem is we've got some positives out there who really don't have COVID. And then on the other side, we have some negatives who really do have COVID. As far as the university testing is concerned, I'm not exactly sure which tests they're getting or what it is. But once again, you've got somewhere between 5 and 40% of the tests are not accurately reflecting whether or not you have COVID. And that's why sometimes a second test to either document you have it or you don't have it can be very, very useful. And then if it's different, talk to your doctor and try to get an interpretation.
So how much time should you wait in between tests?
Well, first of all, if you get COVID, the test is generally not going to be positive until about 5 days after you actually contracted COVID. So I would say if you have a positive COVID test, you should probably wait 2, maybe 3 days. And if it's in the Alliant Energy Center, they're not going to give it to you for 2 or 3 days. So as soon as you get a test, if you're unsure about it, call your doctor. If it's a question, get another test. Now, I'm not suggesting everyone get a second test, but I am suggesting that they consider it, especially if the chances of them giving COVID are very minimal. Now, if he had come into contact with somebody with COVID, been in the same room, a relative or friend or something else, then I would not have suggested that he get the second test. It's that his child was with another child and somebody in that daycare had COVID, and 3 of the other people in his family didn't have COVID. So the risk of his getting COVID is actually very minimal. And that's where you've got to have clinical interpretation to determine what really is your risk if you've got a test that doesn't fit with the information.
Interesting. Very interesting.
All right, now is your chance to call in 270-9933. Have your questions ready. We'll get to them right after the break.